Right now, Russia is launching insane assault. The battle for Kostyantynivka. The infantry has dug in and the artillery is raining fire on the enemy. A fierce response in Pokrovsk. New weapons roar with the sound of retribution. NATO is triumphant. There's just a little bit left to go. In Crimea, what Putin feared most has happened. Our forces surprised everyone. All this in our episode of Hellpoint. For the first time, the occupiers advanced on Kostantinovka from 3 directions at once. Putin's generals gave a bloody order. Battles of unprecedented intensity. There haven't been such massive assault in a long time. The front is on fire. The shells have run out. Drones were brought into play. Our guys did it. They stacked the brazen Russians in piles. The positions were held despite everything. You'll hear about the whirlwind of events at the front straight from our defenders right now.
I'm only interested in one thing. Tell me, what's your motivation? Why did you come here?
For the money.
For the money? Well, you got the money, but you almost lost your arm. Do you still want to fight?
In this video, the deputy commander of the 111th Separate Territorial Defense Brigade, Kostyantynivka, is talking to a Russian who was captured during the assault. In the Kostantinovka direction, Russian forces made a large-scale attempt to break through. The enemy concentrated up to 25 armored vehicles, more than 40 motorcycles, and for the first time attacked from 3 directions at once instead of the usual one.
Almost all of our wounded are gunshot injuries. That is, all the combat encounters are, well, firefights. But this was a personal assault because I've never seen so many IFVs in my life.
However, the Russians were hit with Soviet launchers. They were fired on so heavily that we ran out of shells. And closer to nightfall, the job was finished by drones, which took out the remaining enemy equipment and personnel.
And they went to the left flank to our neighbors on the left, and to the right flank to the neighbors on the right, and a bit to the center as well. I haven't seen such massive assaults in a long time. That is, they probably wanted to catch us by surprise, like a blitzkrieg.
And while the battles rage on the ground, drones are fighting in the sky. In these videos, our pilots shoot down enemy drones.
We traded our FPV drone for a Russian Mavic. We have a net down there, and they circled around.
The assault began around 4 in the morning and lasted until evening. Russian armored vehicles, including BMPs, were breaking through residential areas. However, thanks to the coordinated actions of the defenders, the assault was repelled.
There was one shift at the brigade command post, and by the time it ended, it should have already been the 3rd shift. But everyone stayed at their posts, everyone kept working in their assigned directions. And as I said, the most important thing was coordination because, for example, if the National Guard ran out of something or had some kind of problem, they would tell us, take out this particular vehicle. In the same way, if we couldn't handle something, we immediately, through the command post, asked the Marine Brigade to help us.
Russian drones and artillery were hitting Ukrainian positions. The deputy brigade commander was leading the soldiers to the front line. He admits he was wounded, but the unit held its ground.
We had full coordination between the UAVs and the artillery. And of course there were lines, let's say, meeting lines where the artillery stopped them. Remote mining was carried out. A lot of their equipment was blown up by mines, after which we finished them off with FPV drones.
The Russians had a clear objective, the soldiers say, the strategic heights that opened the way to Kostantinivka. However, that plan was thwarted.
You get used to everything, but the emotions are intense. It's adrenaline. I mean, we did it, we held our ground, and they ended up at Bikap.
Despite the massive assault, not a single position was lost. Casualties among our personnel were minimal. The majority of the enemy was destroyed before they could even approach the fortifications. Katerina Kuzmarova, Dmitro Pozniakov, Rada Television Channel, National Marathon, United News.
Trainloads of weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine. This has never happened before. Allies have generously provided $10 billion. Wow! They show the weapons that will now tear the occupiers apart at the front. The Kremlin's lackeys are scared out of their wits. No one was prepared for this. Trump decided to strike at Moscow on his own. The Allies have switched to turbo mode. We'll tell you in a moment how this is affecting Ukraine right now. $10 billion for arming Ukraine, 17 Patriots, ammunition, missiles, and even a call to bomb Moscow. All of this is no longer a dream, but reality. The USA is officially back on the side of good.
I'm hanging up the phone with Putin. He says it was a great conversation, and then missiles fly toward Kiev. Conversations don't matter.
The rhetoric is surprising, but there's a catch. The US isn't giving Ukraine weapons for free, they're selling them. And it's not Kiev that's paying. Here's how the scheme works. NATO members buy American weapons and then they transfer them to Ukraine.
Donald Trump, there's this problem. He doesn't actually propose any solutions himself. He joins in on successful options, and a successful option emerged, which was discussed at the Alliance Summit, where on the one hand, the Alliance agreed to Trump's demand to increase defense spending to 5%, and that's important. But those 5% must also include aid to Ukraine. Thus, the countries that are helping us don't have to stretch themselves thin, looking for ways to both meet the alliance's requirements and help Ukraine. Ukraine to repel Russian aggression.
So everyone wins. The US profits, Ukraine gets the necessary weapons, and Europe isn't stretched to the breaking point. Germany immediately welcomed Trump's initiative. German Chancellor Merz stated that he had discussed the purchase of American weapons by Europeans with the American president several times and added that Germany would play a decisive role.
We are doing this in our own interests. This will help Ukraine defend itself against Russian bombing terror. This is the only way to increase pressure on Moscow to finally reach a peace agreement. At last, we will show that we are moving in the same direction as our security partners.
Security for Ukraine is priority number one. And security means air defense systems. Kyiv has repeatedly requested additional Patriots. And in this regard, Trump was quite surprising, as he promised to deliver far more than just 1 or 2 systems.
Overall, this agreement is about both ammunition and missiles. We have 17 Patriots being prepared for shipment. They won't need them. So 17 will be sent. A large number of these 17 will be sent to the battlefield. This can be done quickly.
However, there are some nuances with this as well. Trump promises them in the near future. Meanwhile, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius states that the delivery of the first system could take place within a few months. At the same time, Trump himself said that several countries that have Patriots intend to exchange them, meaning they will transfer them to Ukraine and the US will replace them. There are also plans to supply Kyiv with short-range missiles, howitzer shells, medium-range missiles, and air-to-air missiles. But for now, everything is still vague. No one knows the exact list except for the Patriots. And most importantly, it is unknown when the deliveries will begin.
Indeed, there is still a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions. And I would like this process to start as soon as possible. And frankly, it is also in Trump's own interest to start actively selling weapons to Europe and transferring them to Ukraine, because that way America will get the money. He will be able to report to his voters that he has achieved the results with Europe, that they are buying much more American weapons, and so on and so forth. Moreover, it is already clear to everyone that in order to get concessions from Putin, you have to put strong pressure on him. That any kind of concession he perceives as weakness and in response, starts to be rude and act cocky.
Trump also intends to put financial pressure on Putin. The American president gave Putin an ultimatum: either a ceasefire within 50 days or the US government will impose 100% tariffs on Russian goods, as well as secondary sanctions against countries that buy oil from Russia. But in the European Union, Trump has already been criticized for this. Not for being too tough, but for being too slow. The head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, believes that a 50-day deadline is too long.
On the one hand, it is very positive that President Trump is taking a firm stance toward Russia. On the other hand, 50 days is a very long time when we see that they are killing innocent civilians.
The question is whether such a fickle Trump might change sides again. But on the plus side, the Russians are only angering the American president so far, since it was Medvedev who has long irritated the American president, who was the first to respond to Trump's initiative. To add fuel to the fire, he also claimed that Trump had supposedly issued a theatrical ultimatum to the Kremlin.
The world shuddered, waiting for the consequences. Military Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care.
Whether this is really the case, we will find out very soon. And we sincerely hope that Trump has stopped playing games and now truly understands all the threats.
Urgent news straight from Crimea. Intelligence leak. An alternative to the Crimean bridge. The Russians have created a new land railway corridor. They are transporting equipment and personnel in trainloads. Something truly historic is happening. However, there is a catch. This route might become the occupiers' only chance to escape from the peninsula. What are the enemies really preparing for? Are they getting ready for new attacks from the south or perhaps to disappear from the horizon altogether? We'll tell you more about this situation in the following report.
The occupiers' maritime logistics have been practically cut off after successful strikes by the defense forces on Russian ships. The Kerch Bridge is also under the sights of Ukrainian defenders. Our defenders have turned it into a potentially vulnerable logistical artery, the land corridor that the enemy is setting up. This is essentially an alternative to the Kerch Bridge, which the Russians use to transfer weapons to the occupied peninsula. The aggressor had planned to lay the railway even before the full-scale invasion, but failed because our defenders controlled the Mariupol direction.
This is some non-existent railway they promised to build right along the Sea of Azov. And nothing from this has A, been done, B, is being done, and C, I very much doubt they will ever do it.
During the large-scale war, after capturing territories in several of our regions, the Russians announced the creation of a land railway corridor to the temporarily occupied Crimea. They presented this as an achievement, but in reality, they are using the existing Ukrainian railway, which had already been there before.
They occupied it and are using it. In 2014, they cut off a section of this railway, first from Donetsk region, initially there in Donetsk, yes, and in the occupied Crimea. And in 2022, they took it well, starting from 2022. They gradually took it over completely.
The route of the so-called railway corridor starts from Rostov-on-Don, then passes through Taganrog and the temporarily occupied Ukrainian cities of Mariupol, Berdyansk, Melitopol, and further on to Crimea. The Russians spent several years repairing the railway tracks because they had been damaged during the fighting. And only after that...
The roads connect the Russian railways and our railway. There's a similar connection between Mariupol and Taganrog. There, they had to lay a section of railway, including engineering structures, aqueducts, well, basically. They built a kind of bridge end. It becomes part of the overall railway network. The one that already exists.
The Russians definitely created the land route not for civilian transportation, but for military purposes. First and foremost, it's for defense and offense. The occupiers plan to transport both personnel and equipment with ammunition in order to continue holding the peninsula and to launch attacks on southern Ukraine from there. They cannot rely solely on the so-called Kerch Bridge because Ukrainian special services have made it clear that they have plans to destroy it.
As long as this is a single track line, as long as it's not electrified, as long as the transportation is irregular, it can take a very long time. There is no set schedule. For each train, an individual route is planned. There are no regular shipments there, and it's unlikely there will be any in the near future.
This corridor passes through territories where fighting is ongoing. So the Russians are trying to secure it from attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces, covering their equipment with fishing nets.
But you can't cover everything with nets. And who said it would only be our drones? The combat capabilities of the defense forces are clearly increasing. And we all understand perfectly well that we cannot allow the enemy to create alternative logistical routes and develop the land corridor.
Our defenders are closely monitoring the enemy's actions, analyzing them, and are already developing a plan to strike enemy convoys.
This could hit really hard when the time comes, especially if it's the start of transportation. Let's wish the defense forces success.
Elvina Saybulayeva, We Are Ukraine Marathon, United News.
The moment has come. The armed forces of Ukraine have launched a counter-offensive on a critically important section of the front. Fire, steel, and precision. Our people don't just attack, they rewrite the rules of battle. Even enemy drones are now fighting against their own. In the hands of Ukrainians, they have become even more dangerous. Serious steps are being prepared, and this is just the beginning. More about this later in the material.
Gun.
Ukrainian soldiers say that things have become a bit calmer this week in the Sumy direction, but that doesn't mean the Russians have stopped assaulting Ukrainian positions. And now, the artillerymen border guards are trying to stop one of these assaults. The border detachment Steel Border has all the elements of a full-fledged brigade. Units of the 15th detachment are deployed practically along the entire front. But the north, and especially the Sumy region, are the priority.
Now, things have gotten a bit easier. We stopped the enemy's advance.
Steel Border is holding strong. If you look at the deep state map, that tiny little protrusion, that's exactly the section where today the border guards of the Steel Border are defending our country. And they truly stand as a steel border in this area.
And the enemy is stopped here by museum weapons.
To the battle!
BS 3-gun from the year 1944. These usually stand as monuments. And what are its advantages?
Very long range.
The barrel is rifled. Is this what provides long range?
Yes, yes.
With their old cannons, the border guards simply sniped and destroyed an enemy self-propelled gun and enemy fortifications several kilometers from the front line. The enemy is searching for these gunners with drone.
What we are currently hearing could potentially be something in the vast sky above us, perhaps an unmanned aerial vehicle, commonly known as a UAV, or it might even be a German drone, or possibly a Shahed drone.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Got it. Target down.
Here is a just shot down Geran drone, a cheaper version of the Shahed. It's unusual because Gerans are usually white, but this one is black. So it's hard to spot at dusk. But these sharp-eyed guys took it down with an unusual weapon too, which it seems they borrowed from the same museum as the cannon.
It's from 1949.
What is it? It's a ZRU-4.
Is it effective?
Well, you can judge by the number of shootdowns.
How many Shaheds have you shot down?
Well, up to 15 Shaheeds.
And this Russian reconnaissance drone was guiding air bombs onto Ukrainian positions in real time.
The Supercam, which they manufacture, our soldiers shot down. Actually, it was probably brought down by electronic warfare because it's intact.
In the Steel Border laboratory, they'll try to get it back in the air.
We'll try to get it working.
Will you possibly use it as a reconnaissance drone against the Russians?
Well, if. I'd really like to, of course, yes.
More than half of enemy losses are not from artillery, but from drone strikes. So the top priority target that the Supercams are hunting is the operators of Ukrainian unmanned systems.
Right now, we've become priority number one, and they're constantly looking for us, sparing no effort, even using a large number of glide bombs.
And for now, there's nothing to protect against those glide bombs. Attention incoming, including glide bombs.
Ocha Lucy, we're turning around and speeding up.
This is how brutally and mercilessly Russian aerial bombs destroyed one of the drone command posts of the Steel Border unit. It would seem impossible to survive in such hell. Enemy, we're still here! But the guys survived. Miraculously.
It was Armageddon, a complete crater. Everyone started shouting, "Who's alive? Or is everyone okay?" One of our comrades managed to get out and brought a group of our brothers in arms who started digging us out.
And this is the Chernihiv border area. Here, it seems a bit calmer. However, the fiber optic cable just left behind by a Russian FPV drone is a reminder. This calm is only an illusion.
Drones, as if on a free hand, are sent out and look for some target moving along the road and then strike it.
What should we do?
It's better. Against fiber optic, nothing works better than a 12 gauge.
An FPV drone was shot at it, and you can see it was hit on the blades and the body.
So you have a Ukrainian spool, and this one is Russian.
The Russian spool, I think, also has a range of 15 kilometers.
The Yaskold unit of the Steel Border Detachment responds in kind. This is how their fiber optic drones enter enemy territory and strike the radio electronic equipment of the Muscovites.
We haven't been on this section for long, but we've already carried out strikes using fiber optics, and with our analog FPV drones, we've also done mining with the Vampire and hit enemy depots with the Vampire. So here we've already struck the enemy's ammunition depot and hit their light vehicles as well.
Drones have changed the battlefield, but there are tasks for which a rifle is better suited than a drone.
There's a very small niche left for snipers.
But it still exists.
But it does exist.
And what is that niche?
Well, that's urban combat.
In the Sumy region, Steel Border is on the defensive, trying not to let things escalate to urban combat. The Russians are turning villages into ruins. FPV drones with optics are chasing after civilian vehicles moving along rural roads. So, in the forests, they're intensively building galleries of underground fortifications. This is a long passageway, right?
Yes, right.
And these passageways are supposed to connect, as I understand it, all the shelters here.
Yes, all of them completely, so that it's kept to a minimum how much we see moving on the surface, out in the open.
Before the underground construction began in the forest, this four-legged sapper Yola did her work here.
Right at this location, we found about 2120 millimeters mines and 44 82 millimeters mines.
Steel Border is doing what civilian builders failed to accomplish during half a year of the Kursk operation. When you were pulling back, did you occupy the fortifications built by civilians?
No, because all those defensive lines they built out there, outside the city, in front of the city, while they were in open fields. I think no conscious serviceman would take up defense there. Why? Because there's no cover from aviation, from artillery or from drones. I wouldn't send my people there.
In dense forests, it's possible to move the medical station as close to the front line as possible.
We are the first ones positioned this close to the front line.
That's why medics can make use of the golden hour and give the wounded a chance to survive.
A serviceman, a wounded man who was brought in a state of clinical death is alive and now in a clinical hospital in Kyiv.
This stabilization point with 3 operating beds was also built by the military themselves, not by civilians. Here, under the trees, entire fortified areas could have been dug in advance, if the work of civilian builders had been accepted by those who are now fighting in these forests. The forests here stretch almost to the border, so it's possible to camouflage these small American cannons very well. That's exactly why they remain effective in the Sumy region. Here's another historical rarity from the border, guards the M101 cannon. These remember the war in Korea and even World War II, but have proven to be relevant even in the era of all-seeing drones.
When you were with us on the BS-3, it produced a huge amount of gas and fire when fired, a really large amount. That's not the case here. You can fire at night and there's no chance you'll be spotted. It's quiet, like a whip.
That's probably why this former music teacher, now a gunner who fought with the BS-3, swapped the Soviet relic for an American one, keeping a stylish tattoo as a memento of the old cannon.
We can play a tune on this one too, if needed.
The local Sumy-born soldier with the call sign Partizan is driving the Russians away from his own home with a howitzer. And here's another surprise. Some of his students are fighting nearby.
I'm especially pleased that some of my students, about 3 or 4, as far as I remember, are now serving in the armed forces. Well,
joined forces?
Yes.
We hope that bullets, shrapnel and drones will pass by the music teacher and his students, because only thanks to such sincere and caring people do we have a chance to defend our home. Andriy Tsaplienko, Alexander Shian, Ivan Shevtsov, Serhiy Parfilov, TSN Week, 1+1, Marathon, United News.
Everyone is talking about this. The drone was flying straight toward their position but suddenly fell. Our soldier did the impossible, took down an enemy drone with a fishing net. One swift move and the Russian bird was powerless. A cold, calculated action. It's hard to believe something like this. Now it will fly straight onto the occupiers' heads. Revenge has never been this ruthless. You can't miss this.
This is a bomb. There's a bomb inside. There's plastic, explosive and metal balls in here. There's about half a kilo of plastic explosive here.
In his hands, Volodymyr is holding an explosive device that the Russians attached to FPV drones to attack soldiers. It was a bomb just like this that almost took his life in Zaporizhia.
We were supposed to cover the position, but we had nothing to do it with. There was a destroyed fish farm nearby, and I decided to go there myself in the morning to see what I could find. I was walking without a rifle, without anything, just like that.
I started looking for at least some nets to cover the dugout with. Suddenly, I heard the sound of an enemy drone.
It had already spotted me. The camera was good, it saw me, and just hovered there. There was nowhere to run. At that point, you either shoot it down or hide, but I didn't have a rifle to shoot it down.
And besides, he recalls, he didn't have time to hide anymore. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a fishing net. That's a type of landing net. Vladimir only had one chance to be hit.
That only happens once in a lifetime. It's just, well, it happens once in a lifetime. And nobody ever does things like that. It's unreal. I hit it like this, and it fell together with the net and got tangled up. I wasn't even planning to catch it.
Then I ran back to a safe distance because the drone could have detonated at any moment. But it turned out fine. In the evening, Volodymyr, with the call sign Marauder, came back and took the drone. Afterwards, he told the commander everything.
By all the rules, that was forbidden. In general, you can't hold it, touch it, or keep it at all. But thanks to Mr. Marauder, we got an enemy drone, we got its components, which can later be used by our counterintelligence.
Therefore, he decided not to punish the serviceman. Moreover, for his achievements, Volodymyr received an award from the brigade commander.
Reckless in a good way, and sometimes in a bad way too. Optimistic, reliable. Well, in short, he's a marauder, and we love him.
Volodymyr has been in the military since the first days of the full-scale invasion and has suffered 4 concussions. At first, he fought in the Donetsk region. There, during the fighting, he captured a Russian soldier.
His own people abandoned him. He had been wounded in the legs. He was so skinny, toothless, like a convict.
In 3.5 years of war, Volodymyr has encountered a lot of Russian brutality. Determination and quick reactions helped them hold out during assaults, survive attacks, and shelling.
They blocked 2 of our exits with 3 drones. First, they threw grenades, watched to see if anyone would run, and then tossed in a gas grenade. And we heard it. We put on our gas masks, but we didn't run out.
So we sat in the dugout for 3 hours and survived? After everything he's been through, Volodymyr is certain he must continue to defend Ukrainian land and dreams of peace so he can return to his wife and son as soon as possible. From Dnipropetrovsk region, Sofia Moskalenko, Yevgeny Lopatnichenko, We Are Ukraine, Marathon, United News.
That's all from Taimen. I am Darina Hutsakalo, and I was with you. More scorching news from the front in our next broadcast. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!